watching Beyond Markets. Welcome. I am Christy Cole. On today's show, we'll explore social cohesion in Nigeria and also talk the future of artificial intelligence. As always, you can be a part of this conversation by sending tweets to @CNBC Africa with the hashtag Beyond Markets. You can follow me too on Twitter. That's @ChristyColeP. The Africa Polling Institution has conducted a survey to assess the level of social cohesion in Nigeria. Bell Ihua, the executive director of the organization, joined CNBC Africa's Esther Awoniyi to discuss the findings here on Beyond Markets.
The concept of social cohesion is not new. Simply put, social cohesion has to do with the willingness of members of a society to cooperate in order to, one, survive, and two, prosper. So there's the survival element and there's the prosperity element. But in terms of speaking about social cohesion, generally, a socially cohesive society is one that works towards the well-being of all its members, fights exclusion and marginalization, creates a sense of belonging for all, and promotes a sense of trust and oneness, which is above every other ethnic or tribal sentiments.
Now, just a quick question. Why did the API decide to conduct this particular survey at this time?
I think it's really important because Nigeria is currently at the precipice. We are, if you look at the happenings going around in the countries and agitations and tensions here and there, it's important that we begin to ask ourselves some important questions about where we are heading as a nation. And API has taken that responsibility to be the barometer, if you will, of the public to understand what they think about how united or divided Nigeria is today and what can make Nigeria much more united than it has ever been.
5 indicators were used in determining or carrying out this survey. Could you talk us through these 5 indicators, and after that we'll come and take each one of them, just the top 2 questions that made up the response of those of the indicators?
Thank you very much. Yes, 5 indicators, and this was not just about us. This was gotten from the literature. So the literature on social cohesion measures social cohesion across the world with 5 major indicators. 1, identity. How do the people see themselves? Do they see themselves first as Nigerian, or do they see themselves from a tribal or ethnic paradigm? 2 is the issue of trust. Do they trust state institutions, that state institutions will protect them, will make sure that they are okay and will secure them? 3 is the issue of equity and social justice. Are all Nigerians equal under the law? Are there some Nigerians more equal than others? 4 is the issue of patriotism. In spite of whatever may be happening, are Nigerians themselves willing to put in their own effort to make the country a better place? And 5 is the issue of self-worth and future expectations. So how are Nigerians feeling today, and what do they think about the future of the country?
Okay, let's start with identity. What were the 2 top questions?
Okay, great. The 2 top questions, 1 was the question of, is Nigeria more united today than it was 4 or 5 years ago? And I'll tell you, 45% of Nigerians say that the country is much more divided today than it was 4 or 5 years ago. That's compared to only 26% who thought that the country was much more united today than it was 5 years ago. So also the other question of, how do you see yourself as a Nigerian? Do you see yourself first as a Nigerian or first as a member of an ethnic group? Interestingly, 87% of Nigerians prefer to see themselves as both Nigerian and from their ethnic group. And amongst or within these 87%, we have about 25% who see themselves more as being ethnic than being Nigerian. And you have 10% who see themselves only as being ethnic than being Nigerian. And also you have just about only 3% who see themselves as only Nigerian. So we have a demography here of people having more allegiance to their ethnic group than the nation. And that's sort of some of the issues that is playing out why Nigeria is not a socially cohesive country.
We'll come back and talk more about that, but let's quickly go through the second one on the issue of trust. What were the two top questions?
Okay, the issue of trust, three top questions. One, how much trust do you have in the president, in the National Assembly, and in the judiciary? Interestingly, only about 47% of Nigerians said they have some or a lot of trust in the president. But this is a great score for the president compared with the National Assembly. Only about 33% of Nigerians said they had some or a lot of trust in the National Assembly, and 32% who said they have some or a lot of trust in the judiciary. So when you compare the president's trust in the president versus the National Assembly and the judiciary, you find out that the president has at least 13 points or 14 points ahead of the National Assembly and judiciary. And if you look a bit into the demography of where that support for the president is coming, you can see clearly that the less educated in terms of literacy level, those living in the rural areas, the whole Baba, Talakawa, or father of the poor is playing out here and that's where the population of the country is. We see a clear resonance at the grassroots level for the president.
Interesting. Let's move on to equity and social justice. What were the two major questions?
Interestingly, on equity and social justice, so the first major question is, are all Nigerians equal under the law? So 70% of Nigerians stated that all Nigerians are not equal under the law. They believe that there are certain Nigerians that are more equal than others. Only 20% believe that the law protects everybody equally. So you have a huge data set of 70% of the people who feel that the law does not protect everyone equally. The second question has to do with if this government is promoting a sense of inclusion for all ethnic groups. Unfortunately, 65% of Nigerians do not believe that this government is promoting a sense of inclusion for everybody. So a lot needs to be done on part of government to actually ensure that Nigerians know that they are promoting inclusion for everyone.
Okay, quickly now, number 4, question on patriotism. What were the two major questions of focus?
Okay, the question on patriotism, so three major. So the first is that 73% of Nigerians are willing to cooperate with their members of their community to make Nigeria a better place. 2, 70% of Nigerians are willing to join the process, the political process. And 3, when we ask the question of how many Nigerians will be willing to join the military to defend the territorial integrity of the country, only about 46% said they will be willing to join the military or give themselves up for the country.
Well, so here we see a strong sense of patriotism. Despite looking at, for the other indicators, identity, trust, equity, and social justice, where there is that broad gap in terms of trust and how they see the government of the day, patriotism appears to come out. A sense of patriotism is still strong here.
Yes, so patriotism in the line of 1, cooperating with members of their community to make the country more united, and 2, joining the political process to make the country a better place. But in terms of joining the military to protect the integrity or the territorial integrity of the country, only about 46%.
Okay, let's take the 5th and the final one. I guess, this is perhaps the most important one. Question on self-worth and future expectations. How do Nigerians feel about this?
Yes, in the area of self-worth, we ask Nigerians, how do you feel presently about your life at the moment? Interestingly, 45% say they feel disappointed about their lives right now in the country, but then we also have 40% who say they feel somewhat satisfied about their life. So a mishmash here, 45% disappointed, 40% satisfied. Then we also ask the question of what do you think about the future of the country? And we have clearly 62% of Nigerians who believe that irrespective of whatever may be happening today, the country will be better in the future. But then we also chipped in a very interesting question to ask, if you had the opportunity to relocate with your family out of Nigeria, would you seize that opportunity? Interestingly, the majority, 50%, said no, they wouldn't seize the opportunity. They'll prefer to stay in the country and make it a better place. However, we have 3 in 10 Nigerians, 30% of Nigerians who say if they have the opportunity, they will leave the country. And they'll leave the country for 3 main reasons. 1, because they want to get greener pastures abroad. 2, because they want to get better job opportunities. And 3, because they need better security. And when we asked what countries would you consider going, the USA, the United States of America, the UK, and Canada were the top 3 countries of preferred.
That is indeed interesting. But I mean, good to see for this last one is still a strong sense of hope for those, the percentage of people Nigerians who still would prefer to remain back and not take the opportunity to leave the country. You know, some people might be wondering, this poll, yes, it's very important, it's quite an eye-opener, but how many people were polled and across what demographic, was this done?
This is a poll of 5,019 respondents sampled across the country, every single state in Nigeria. In fact, the data is proportionately represented to every senatorial district in the country. Data was gathered by face-to-face stratified random sample across the country. So this is data from the entirety of Nigerians, a great selection of the population. That's what we have here representing us at the moment.
Now for the API, I know this is just one among perhaps several that you do, but for this particular research survey, I mean, what's going to happen from here on? Is this something that you think perhaps the government, government probably would have, should have some interest in this in terms of just maybe some kind of feedback as a feedback mechanism in terms of how Nigerians feel on a number of issues that were part of the survey questions. But for the API, are you taking this a step further?
Precisely, Esther. We are trying to reach out also to the government so we can go present these data to them. We, apart from releasing to the public, we don't think it should end at the public. We want to reach out to the presidency, reach out to the National Assembly, and make a presentation of this data so that they get a sense of what Nigerians are thinking about the country and what needs to be done to enhance social cohesion. There's so much bottom billion, so much poverty at the bottom of the pyramid. Unemployment levels are high and all of that. And because of that, you get this disconnection. So there's some issue with the social contract. A lot of people have been disconnected from the social contract. So we have a situation where, people are excluded. So a lot needs to happen to make people included or to breed a sense of inclusion.